Welcome back, squids. Today in this video I'm going to talk to you about the pros and cons of a Honda St1300 Pan-European. So the question is, why would anybody get an St1300 in 2023? You can get so many bikes, but the problem is you can't get many bikes for $4,000 that will get you a shaft drive and a 1300cc engine that's extremely reliable. I mean, you can get these all day long and you could rest assured that they'll be reliable. So to me, one of the big things I like about vehicles is durability, reliability. This bike is so well protected. The windscreen is so effective, and this one, look at that, electric windshield, that you can ride throughout the winter, given it doesn't have any snow and ice, pretty much in pure comfort. Another big pro of this bike is the amazing smoothness that you get. This, of course, it's a very big, heavy bike, but it's extremely smooth. The engine is a V4 and it makes pretty darn good power. It's not crazy horsepower, but it feels actually slower than it is. So you have this amazing engine between you that's very unique. It's like sideways mounted, hey, butterflies, and that makes it so you can ride long miles without getting tired from like the buzzing of an engine. And also, one of the cons is that some people would consider it boring because it doesn't have like crazy horsepower and the noise that it makes is very sedate. But you have to kind of like the Jetsons sort of like turbine sound to really appreciate this. The transmission on this, buttery smooth. It's what you'd expect from a transmission from Honda. They don't make them anymore, and a lot of people are confused why. It comes down to sales numbers, but a lot of Hondas tend to have really bad sales numbers and they become like these cult classics. Look at the Honda Element. Look at the Honda Africa Twin. Not a great seller, but because of the demand after they discontinued them, it became the it bike to get. And the Honda Element, for example, it was such a cool car, but at the time it was so modern that people couldn't get past the square looks. It's the same thing with this bike. You know, in 2003 you had a Honda Goldwing and the FJR. I believe the FJR came like the next year in 2004. But touring bikes in 2003, they weren't great handlers. And this St1300 is a great handler. Of course, you have to know how to ride. It does require a little bit more of a different skill set than a sport bike. You really can't charge into corners at like Mach 5 or whatever Mach it is. Like, I'm not even really that comfortable riding it aggressively, but my 2003, I was much more aggressive with it. The aftermarket resale on this is so low, and you can get a St1300 for $2,500 around here with high mileage. When I say high mileage, it's over 70,000. But these, like 40,000 miles, or 30,000 miles in great shape, you're like about 4,000, 5,000. The St1300, it's an all-day comfort bike. And this one's got an aftermarket seat that I find really amazingly comfortable. 500 miles a day, very easy to do. And the way the wind on this just goes all around you, and then the engine that doesn't make very much sound, it doesn't fatigue you. So you can ride this pretty much all day, every single day, rack up 300,000 miles, and it's not a tiring bike. The handling on this bike, it's a 700-pound bike, but I find that at high speed it does really well. To me, a sport touring machine, I don't really take it over 100 miles an hour. I'm not interested in that sort of speed anyway, but I've always found that the handling on this bike on back roads is great. Going into corners at high speed, this bike handles so well its weight that it feels like it's a much louder bike going into corners. And that's a particularly dangerous thing because you're going like, oh yeah, I can handle this. And one of the things that this bike has is that the speed sensation is so gone that you think, oh, I'm going 30 miles an hour into this corner, but in reality you're going like 80 or 90. So you always have to be aware that this bike is faster than it seems to be going. And I think a lot of guys, they get in trouble with the comfort and the speed combination, and you'll go into a corner way too hot. It gets about 40 miles to the gallon on a good day. On a good day. This is not an efficient bike. It's a big bike, it's a heavy bike. That's one of the cons of it. I wish it got better gas mileage. I wish it got 40 consistent, but it's very difficult to get 40 miles to the gallon on this. And another really big benefit over the FGR is that this tank here only has like a gallon or two or something, and it's more of a shell. The gas tank on this is underneath the seat, so the feeling of lower weight is a little bit more evident on the SD as opposed to the FGR. One of the things I didn't like about the FGR, and it had an 04 blue electric windscreen very similar to this, was the weight just felt really high up. They put those 6 gallons worth of fuel right up on the top, even higher than this. Battery on the FGR right up top, like really high. It's really bad design. This one, the battery beneath the seat. It's even lower than the seat, like a little bit lower, and then the gas tank even lower. The motor, it is a V4, so it's even lower. So the overall feeling of this bike is much better to ride. The FGR, man, it's not a bad bike. The engine on that's definitely a more sporty sort of sport touring machine, and it looks great without the bags. This one looks really terrible without the bags. Honda should have done a better job designing without the bags, like a little bit more styling. Sometimes they do that. they just like gotta stop. It's like, this bike is meant to ride with the bags, and that's it. But I do love the styling of this bike. I think that's my only pet peeve about Honda. Sometimes they skip things, like they expect people to ride with the bags all the time, but you know, sometimes you want to remove the bags and kind of pretend you're on a sport bike. The weight on this bike, this is a pig. You know, I'm not gonna lie, it is a pig. The interesting thing is that the new Goldwings, they have a lower feeling of weight. I don't know their weight, but this thing is like 680 pounds or 700 pounds with gas or whatever. So big heavy bike. But as soon as you start moving, it's kind of like one of those things. The weight just disappears very easily because of the low center of gravity. This is a wide bike as well, so when you are on these type of roads, you have to be mindful that you don't clip something with your mirrors. Another big con of this bike, at least in my eyes, is the maintenance. Now, it's a Honda, doesn't require maintenance. It's dead reliable. It's been proven hundreds of thousands of miles. People have done that over and over. It's really common to see a bike with 100,000 miles without any mechanical issues. But here's the thing. If something breaks, this bike has got so much plastic. It's so difficult to get to items. Like the alternator, oh my God, what a nightmare. And also with the fuel tank being low, it also means that it requires a fuel pump, and on these, the fuel pump will go out or could go out. I had that happen on my St1300, my last one, and I completely forgot about it. But that's a pain in the ass if that happens. Like changing that fuel pump. And the fuel pumps on Hondas go bad. I also had the fuel pump on my Africa Twin go bad. The fuel pump on the Africa Twin, the old one, it's very easy to change, but the fuel pump itself was 300 euros, which is ridiculous. Another thing is that this bike is discontinued, so parts for it are a little bit harder to get. You can still get them, you know, they made plenty of them. But you know, they're expensive. If you wreck one of the bags, that's like minimum $600, $700 to fix. They come in parts, so it's like the shell and the inner part, so a lot of times you're just going to break the shell. I know because a car hit me on my last St1300 and I had to get it replaced, and it's a pain in the ass. One of the bad sides too is that if you ride spirited, you're gonna get like 35 miles to the gallon. Not a great MPG. Not a great MPG. And I believe the range on this bike is like 250 miles, but also the last ride that I did, I only got maybe 180 miles. So it's a big difference when you hop on this bike and you want to like ride with your sport bike buddies. You're gonna get horrendous mileage. Let's do a start up this bike so you guys can hear this V4, and that's pretty much it. One of the really big cons that this bike has, and I know every time I like mention this, there's always somebody that goes like, oh, my St1300 doesn't do that. It's the stability issues. I am sorry, man. My 03 ST, no matter what I did, it had like a 100-mile-an-hour weave. Sometimes it didn't, but it was really dangerous. And the pan weave is something that many ST owners reported. You know, what's over here? I'm gonna check this out. Barnes Rug. I'm gonna go here. Yeah, the stability issues that this bike has, they're not fun. They're actually frightening. It's the most unstable bike I've had, mainly on the highway, and even on this one. I'm riding at the same speed on back roads and it's fine, and then I get on the highway, I get behind like a semi truck where the wind kind of like starts swirling, and this bike is so unstable and it throws you around much more than any bike I've ever had. Now you can kind of like know where it is. It's like the trucks when you pass them, you just have to be mindful. But every bike I've ever had, I've never had that issue. The St1300 from 2003 that I had, if I was going like 100 miles an hour on a perfectly nice road, it would start to wobble, and it felt like that your front wheel wanted to like just come up from underneath, like slide. And I never understood why it was so unstable, but there was a thing that happened with the police in England. One guy died, and that's something that St1300 owners, they kind of forget that, or they think that somehow that's a weird, uncommon thing, but it's pretty common. I think if you are, I'm gonna go here. I think if you're riding this bike at the same speed a scooter, you'll never encounter those issues. But if you ride a little bit spirited, you are going to encounter this, and it's kind of frightening. It's not something that a bike should have of this size. This thing should be perfectly smooth throughout. I know that people go like 150 miles an hour, at least they always claim. But even when I had my 03, I posted it up on like several groups, and everybody was like blaming me for the bike having a weave. It's like, oh, it's improperly loaded. Oh, you got mismatched tires. Oh, you got improper inflated tires. And never the case. And also, every bike that I've ever had, I've had like 48 bikes, never did that. Even if it was like mismatched tires, like lower PSI than recommended, always much more stable than the St1300. But a lot of these guys defending their bikes, they feel like it's an insult to bring this up. And I think that's why maybe the resale value of this bike is so low, is because people know about that weave. I could easily not talk about that weave, gloss over that people didn't die from it, but they did. This is something that happened. It's not because they had weight, the police had all of this equipment. No, the bike should be capable of doing this, even with the weight. Every other bike does it, right? Who do you think, like the police department, are not going to maintain their bikes? It's so ridiculous. I hate like when people really think that these bikes are absolutely perfect. Every bike that they own is perfect. You know, and that's the reason I didn't do that job at a bike shop selling bikes. I could not tell people some of the problems. It really chaps my asshole. And the stability issues are a problem on this bike. And there's a lot of great things about it, and you have to take the good with the bad. That's the bad. But most of my riding, I don't really push it to like 120 miles an hour. I like to ride back roads, and most of the time I'm riding this at the speed that I ride most other bikes. So in that case, it's a great deal if you know some of the issues, how to correct them. And that's the thing too, even with like a steering stabilizer, I think you would still feel that wobble, because that wobble is so strange. It's like it starts at the top, it hits the wind here, and it feels like the front of the wheel kind of wants to like come out from under you. You know, this bike also, it doesn't have crazy horsepower. It also has crazy weight. So what happens is that with the amount of weight and the horsepower it has, it does wear out tires extremely fast. And if you're riding a little bit more sporty, you're going to feel that the tires are going to get worn pretty quickly. I think my last St1300, I think I put 70,000 miles on it, and every 5,000 to 6,000 miles I had to like change the rear. And that's not a good thing if you're trying to minimize your budget. This is not really the type of bike that is cheap to run when it comes to tires. Another really big pro is that this bike, it's got such nice torque in the first to two gears. If you are in the right gear, you can do wheelies on this. And on my St1300, my last one, I would do wheelies on group rides. Not crazy wheelies, just like power wheelies. And it was a really amazing bike to pull wheelies, very stable, but it's heavy. So fork seals could be a problem if you're into doing wheelies. Another really big benefit is that this bike is very simple compared to today's standard. So you don't have a lot of the electronic gizmos that will go bad. Another thing is like you fill this bike pretty much with about $20. Another big con is it's a big bike. This is a 700-pound bike, so you drop it, it's heavy to pick up. It's a little bit harder to move it around a garage if you have like a little slope. If you back up into like McDonald's or whatever, you got to be mindful as you're pushing it out. It doesn't have a reverse gear, so, and it doesn't really require it, but you push this bike anywhere, like uphill or so, it's gonna wear you out. This is the bike. This is the Sport Touring machine. The FGR had a 17 front. This one's got an 18 front, 17 rear. So this one tends to be, or theoretically could be, more stable riding because of the big wheel. In slow speeds it does feel like that, and it's got a very long wheelbase, so it's very comfortable. At least for me, I think it's a very comfortable bike. As soon as you start moving 5 miles an hour, very easy. So that's the engine, the head. You see how it just sticks out. If you pop this out, you can get the spark plugs. This one has got a big frame here. It's also got these little winglets. The battery is right there. The fuel tank, you know, you would think that the fuel tank is here. It's got one. It's got two separate fuel tanks. It's got one here with 2 gallons. I forgot what it is. But the other fuel tank is underneath here. And somewhere here. And that's 7 gallons of fuel. This has got a lever to kind of help you put it on the center stand. It's pretty easy when you compare it to the St1300. That was a very difficult bike. The seat is adjustable. It's got 3 positions. I like to have it on the highest. So center stand, it's got these crash bars. It's got the preload adjustment knob. This one has got high risers, so it's very comfortable, very relaxed. It's got this to mount your GPS. It's got this to mount another phone or whatever. The mirrors are integrated into the bike, so are the blinkers, and to me that looks great. That's what the Silverwing should have had. So the wind kind of gets deflected over this. People keep asking me what kind of windscreen it is. This is a Stream, V-Stream, I guess. Never had one of those, but people tell me it's really good. The high beams, low beams work really well. They're very effective for this style of riding. But really great engine. ABS brakes. The brakes are really good. You need good brakes on something this heavy. You have the bags. You know, this bike looks really bad without the bags. It's got the stock exhaust. They do have Stay Tuned exhausts that cost like $2,000, but it doesn't get louder. It might get a little bit peppier. I find that these are fine. I thought about switching into different type of exhaust, but it doesn't make sense. You want this bike to be quiet. You know, you don't want this to turn into a loud sport bike. The sound eventually fatigues you on long rides, and this bike is meant for crushing miles. Everything is integrated. The taillight, the blinkers, the bags, everything's integrated. Honda did a great job on that. You know, you can put your key here, pop this out, remove the bag. This is actually a key. I just leave it in there. And I think one of my complaints is that the saddlebags, of course, they open sideways. That's how you open it. I hate side opening bags. If you want to put something in there, like a helmet, you have to kind of like put the helmet, it'll slide out, push it back in. Half the time you're struggling to get things in there. But I guess back in the day, in a lot of these sport touring machines, it's sideways opening. But you see, it's like everything is integrated. This bike is dirty because I don't really clean it. But the rear suspension, front suspension on this have been modified. These are race tech springs, and it's been completely redone. The fork seals were done recently on it. It really rides like it's a brand new bike. It sounds like it's a brand new bike. That's why I think that these bikes in the used market make such good bikes. I think the downside of the rear tire of this bike is that it's such a heavy bike combined with the horsepower that it will wear out tires. And the valve stem, I recently added it. You need a 90-degree valve on this. It's so difficult filling air on the regular stem on the rear tire. So when it comes to some nice things about this, you have a lockable pouch here, and it's pretty deep, so you can put a lot of stuff in there. And then on the other side, non-lockable and not as deep, but doesn't have any USB charging or anything. Shifting, very crisp. Every Honda I've had tends to be this crisp. One time I was riding and I hit a false neutral, but that was kind of like if you push it. If you push this bike, you might get a false neutral, but that's very rare. It's got a hydraulic clutch, hydraulic brakes. I have these mirrors here. I had them in a box. I didn't realize that they were for this bike, but it's one of those like 360 mirrors to see. It's like a blind spot detection. Works well. This one does have an electric windscreen. I've never really had the need for an electric windscreen, but after you use it, you go like, oh yeah, that's a brilliant idea. But a lot of times, like, I'm thinking, do I need an electric windscreen? And no, my first ST did not have one. My St1300 did not have one. Yeah, I had an St1300 too. Turn on the heat. It's cold. But you see this bike, it's just one of those bikes that you'll just get the job done. I've actually hiked this area, but I hate hiking. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. This bike, yeah, it's got some faults. Some pretty serious faults, as you guys know. But I really recommend it, because if you're a guy like me, limited amount of money, and you want big bang for the buck, sport touring, I would get this. An old FJR, a Super 10 for adventure bikes, E-Strom 650. That's kind of like what I like about bikes. I like a bang for the buck. And this bike, $2,500, you can get one of these with high mileages. The engines are great, super comfortable. Just get it. Get it and ride. This is a bike for riders, not for posing. So that's it, guys. That's the ride for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next ride. Thanks for watching.